Imagine this, it's 2006, a 20-something is at a kitchen table, a pile of receipts, a battered laptop, and an idea most accountants think is ridiculous. Instead of charging by the hour, she turned accountancy into subscription, like Netflix, but for tax returns. That founder is our guest. She doesn't look like stereotype in a grey suit. She's more rock chic disruptor than spreadsheet clerk. At 23, she founded Mazuma and built it into a multi-million-pound business, serving thousands of small businesses across the country. She's a former Team GB powerlifter, an award-winning author, a campaigner of women's health and mental health, and by her own description, someone with raging ADHD. We're going to talk about business, trauma, what it means to rebuild a life and a body on your own terms. Lucy Cohen is our guest. Let's get inside her Maverick mind.
Hi, what an intro.
Great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me here. It's awesome.
Growing up, did you imagine yourself as an accountant or something very different?
No, is the quick answer to that question, very swiftly. I was always really academic, but my family were all creatives, so actors, dancers, musicians. I thought I was going to follow in those footsteps, and as I kind of went through school and did my A-levels, I applied to university to go and, I think I got into Exeter to study drama, and couldn't go to university for various reasons, so took a gap year and sort of actually blagged myself into this sort of world, into working in film and TV for a year. And I hated it, properly hated it. And I just thought, oh man, like, what am I going to do now? So went to a careers office in the centre of Cardiff. They opened a book of careers, I presume, alphabetically, and went, accountancy? I was like, yeah, sure, that'll do. And I walked over the road to what was Jury's Hotel Group at the time. I had no idea what I was asking for. And I just said, have you got any jobs in accounts? And the financial controller happened to be at reception. And she said, oh, that's really strange. Our purchase ledger clerk has just left. Can you do purchase ledger? I went, yeah, of course I can. And that was how I got into accountancy. That was it.
But you've got this creative flair about you. But you were all obviously good at maths in school.
Yeah. I always feel like a bit of a dick saying this. I've always found academic work quite easy. Yeah, I was good at maths, science, writing, all that kind of stuff. So I could get through that stuff quite easily. I never found exams a problem. They never fazed me. So going into something where I had to, learn something completely different to what I thought I was going to do really didn't bother me. And actually, when you get into something like accountancy, it's not really maths. My mental arithmetic is genuinely shocking, like really bad. But I'm very good at logic, formulas, rules, interpreting things. And actually what I fell in love with in accountancy was the numbers tell a story. It's not about what they say on a page. That's the really boring bit. Actually, those are the things that help you understand a business, understand an entrepreneur. You can see they're like the kind of rings on a tree. You can see what's happening in a business from those numbers. And that for me is the really interesting bit.
You started Mazuma in your early 20s
Yeah.
and turned accountancy into a subscription service. What was the problem you could see that nobody else seemed to be bothered about at the time?
It seems like, so 2006 was when Mazuma was founded, and it's really hard to cast your mind back there because the world's moved so quickly, and 2006 still seems quite current. Well, it does to me anyway. But actually, that was a world before cloud software, before iPhones, really, before most of the social media we have. And what I saw actually was based on what I'd seen with my family, which was they were brilliant, talented people. Through the nature of what they did, they're not scale up businesses, but they had to go to see an accountant once a year, get their accounts done, and they hated it. Absolutely hated it. There was the anxiety around getting the stuff ready. There was the anxiety around going to the accountant. What was the tax bill going to be? What was the accountant's bill going to be? And I remember kind of watching that pattern play out year after year. My dad used to have this kind of concertina folder of receipts that was kept in the Welsh dresser. And I can still see that trip every year in my head. And at the time, I remember thinking, there has to be a better way of doing this. Surely there must be something between that and what people are experiencing. And that was where the kind of idea for Mazuma came from, which was kind of meeting two needs for me. The first was I wanted to have a regular income, scarred by a life of performers and that kind of like boom and bust money thing. I was like, well, if I can have people pay me regularly, I can have a regular income. So in order to be paid regularly, I really should do something regularly, which meant, okay, you still have to do all this work over the year anyway. We break the fee down into months. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. It was to just kind of meet two needs. People thought it was a terrible idea, like other accountants.
Were they?
I thought it was a terrible idea. In fact, the first business advisor I went to see was a guy called Ian. He told me it was a terrible idea and it would never, ever work.
Great.
Yeah, I was like, thanks, Ian. Cheers, mate. Awesome. So every morning I'm very driven by spite as a person. Every morning I wake up and I think, screw you, Ian. Like, look what I've done.
But also, did it not help that you didn't exactly fit the stereotype of the grey-suited accountant? Did they judge the book by its cover and thought you couldn't possibly?
Oh, yeah, I got asked so many times if it was my dad's company. Honestly, so many times. And, I think for a little while at the beginning of that, I tried to fit that mould. And as I've got older, I'm more and more comfortable not. And it's about finding your tribe as well. There is a bum for every seat. So people will vibe with you if you look and feel like someone they can trust and who feels familiar to them. And actually, I think that kind of idea of professional services being really stuffy and three-piece suit and whatever can really turn people off, because entrepreneurs and small businesses tend not to be that. They tend not to be in that world. So actually, it creates a divide. It feels almost elitist in many ways, which is why that's why I no longer dress that, clearly no longer dress that way.
But I love the fact that you're a disruptor, a rule breaker. You've got a following on LinkedIn and other things.
Yeah.
When did it first hit you that Mazuma wasn't just a job, but a proper thing, but also a disruptor in the industry?
From that first meeting where Ian told me it was an awful idea, I remember coming out of that meeting feeling so disheartened and just thinking, have I got this so wrong? And again, I was only 23 at the time. That's a baby. I'm thinking, God, have I got this so wrong? And I've always trusted my gut. And there was just something in there thinking, right, Lucy, you have no evidence that this is going to work. You know absolutely nothing about the accounting profession in a practice sense. You have not long finished your qualifications, but you think you know better than everyone else. And there was this little voice in my head that went, yep, I do think that. And that's kind of what spurred me on. So I think I've always known that I've been disruptive since then. In terms of the impact of that, I don't think I've really, honestly, didn't really realise it probably until a few years ago, because you just sort of head down, you're getting on with it, you're not really looking up. And it wasn't then really, I think, until a few years ago when people started outside of the accounting world recognising me and coming up to me in the train station and asking, are you Lucy? I was like, oh, okay. It is a thing. Like, this is kind of recognised outside of the fairly esoteric world of accounting. And it's, other people are recognising it too. And that's when I realised I should probably brush my hair more often in public. Yeah.
But when you were 23, never would you have dreamed that you'd become the youngest president of the AAT.
No, and when I started my qualifications at AAT, I did it through an apprenticeship, and it was really a means to an end. So I was an apprentice. I did my apprenticeship, and AAT were the exams I took and the qualification I got, and then applied for a practicing licence through them. So that's kind of how I started my career. It hadn't really occurred to me, actually, to even think about whether that was a path I wanted to take. Again, until it was actually a guy who used to work for me called Mo, and he was running one of the branch networks for AAT, and he invited me along to talk, and he made a joke. He said, you should be AAT president. I was like, yeah, you, hilarious. And then an opportunity came up to kind of stand for council, and I did that. And then, within a couple of years of that, I was elected president, which is quite the journey from that book in a career centre to you can do an apprenticeship doing AAT through to now being the president of the accounting body that started my whole career, and having had a whole career in between. I don't really like the phrase pinch me moments, but it's really hard not to look at that as some kind of cosmic full circle thing. Yeah, it's a real privilege. It really is.
When did you realise that there was, multi-million pound growth in your company?
I remember very distinctly writing on a whiteboard, I think probably in like week 1 of business when I had no customers and nothing in my bank account. I remember writing on a whiteboard £5 million. Like I was like, that's what I want the company to be worth, £5 million. And thinking about how I was going to get there. And we didn't really have smartphones back then. I wish, it'd been now, I'd have taken a photo of it, I'd kept it and used it. But I remember thinking, I want this to be more than just me. It's why I didn't name it after myself. So I picked a brand name for it. I think I didn't come from a business background, but there was something in me that knew, look, if it was really attached to me as a person, then the brand is going to be, it's going to be very hard to scale. And I've always really admired strong brands. I was like, it'll be a brand. And it's purple. People used to often ask me, like, why have you gone purple? And I used to make up some story about it being a colour theory. That was rubbish. The reason the envelopes were purple was because I went to Staples to buy coloured envelopes thinking, well, that will distinguish them from the other envelopes that people have in their houses. And the purple ones were on sale. And so I bought them from Staples because I didn't have any money. And that was why they're purple.
That's brilliant. But it's the truth and the honesty which I admire.
Yeah. And we had to go through a few iterations because at one point I was working from my house and I'd got a puppy and someone had obviously posted them to my house and my dog literally like chewed the purple envelope and their receipts. I remember having to go to one of our very first clients saying, I'm very sorry, my dog has literally eaten your homework. I'm so sorry. But yeah, those are the things that they don't tell you about business. But no, I knew that I wanted it to scale. Scaling things is just problem solving en masse. And it's really appealing. I love a system and I love doing that. I've always liked the idea of employing people, not for the ego thing, but because I came into this in such an unconventional route to think, well, if I came into it never thinking I was going to be an accountant, I wonder who else is out there who wants that too. And could they do something? Is there an opportunity for them? So to give that chance to other people has always been quite important to me.
Now, you've given me permission to talk about BC and AC, which is before clots and after clots.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. On Substack, you've got a piece, The Meat, Sock and Me. You talk about your life in 2 phases, before clots and after clots. What happened in 2021?
Yeah, it's still, every time I talk about it, I get goosebumps. I've always danced or been into sports. I've always been very physically active. I've looked after my body, apart from all the piercings and tattoos. I trained physically very, very strong and capable. And I was out walking the dog just on the 1st of April, 2021. And I bent over, I think probably to grab the dog because she was being an idiot. And I felt like my right leg kind of blew up. And I thought I'd ripped something. It felt like my hamstring had ripped something. It was just kind of so acute and so sudden and so painful. And I sort of hobbled back home. It took me about an hour to hobble back home. And I was like, well, this isn't good. Like, this is, how have I, and you kind of make the joke to yourself, like powerlifters are quite often like, you lift all these heavy weights, you do all this training and it's like reaching for the milk and your back goes. Like, that's the thing. I was like, I can't believe this has happened to me. 2021, COVID's still going on. I managed to get an appointment with my osteopath who is like, well, I'm not worried because you don't look unwell. Like, there's no physical symptoms apart from the fact your foot's a little bit cold. It's probably you have ripped something and something's like probably pressing or swollen. But thankfully he was like, look, just in case, go to the doctor. So sent me to the GP. Same thing with the GP, was like, I'm not overly worried. You're fit, you're healthy, you're strong. It probably is an injury. We're going to send you for some blood tests just in case. And thank goodness they said just in case. I was actually at the hairdresser's and it was like my first haircut after COVID. I was so excited and I had like hair dye on my hair and the phone rings and it's my doctor who said, Lucy, whatever you're doing now, stop. You need to go to hospital immediately. I was like, pardon? He's like, yeah, you need to go to hospital. I'm like, oh, but I'm in the hairdresser's. Can I just finish? He's like, no. So off I go. And yeah, it was a full on, emergency. I had to hop in because by this point I couldn't walk and my foot had gone blue, which maybe was a bit of a red flag. I couldn't walk properly. I kind of hopped in. There's someone waiting there with a wheelchair for me. I'm rushed down these corridors, poked, prodded, kind of your autonomy sort of disappears at that point. Like your body's taken away from you and you become this kind of test case. And yeah, consultant comes over and there's ports in me and they're like, look, we're not that worried, but your blood results were mental, so mental that we think there's something wrong with the actual, like the the machine's wrong. We think that there's something wrong with the actual test, because he said to me, he said, if your blood results were actually that, you'd be dead. There's no chance you'd be here. So we think there's something wrong, but we have to treat it as serious just in case. I was like, oh, okay, thanks. Cheers, doc. Anyway, 3 days goes by, all these tests, all this stuff, and he comes back. And I just remember his face so clearly, because I've never seen a medical professional. I'm a very pale person. I've never seen somebody out pale me. And he was grey. And he just said, I don't know how you're still alive. He said, I don't know how we haven't had to amputate your foot. I have never seen this happen. He actually said, I've never had a conversation with someone for whom this has happened, because they're usually dead. He said, that's it. He said, your body's made a shower of arterial blood clots. We don't know from where. So it wasn't like a DVT or a vein. They just appeared in my arteries. They counted 17 of them. They landed predominantly in my legs. And he just said, yeah, had one of those gone anywhere else, your brain, your heart, your lungs, your bowel, he said, you'd just be a statistic right now. You'd have just dropped dead on the spot. He said, so I don't know how you are here, but you are. And now we need to figure out what to do with you, because none of us have ever seen this before.
Whoa.
It was a lot.
I think so. It's a lot of processing.
It was a lot, yeah.
That must have been incredible to go from an athlete and a Team GB powerlifter. Mm-hmm. You should be in the morgue.
Yeah, I should be dead. Yeah, I shouldn't be here.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was the journey like after that?
I don't think I really realised how hard it was until after I was kind of mainly out the other side of it. I think anybody who's ever started a business who is an entrepreneur, you have this just keep going mentality, like head down, keep going, just solve the next thing in front of you.
Exactly.
Don't look up, don't look too far down the track. And that's what I was doing. So first it was like, okay, well, now what? And I was having to inject myself with a version of heparin into my stomach with these like needles like this. Not like the cute Ozempic jabs you get now, but like the big fat needles into my stomach. It changed my body. I was very puffy, put on a lot of weight. Most of my hair fell out. It's why my hair's silver now. It all grew back white. And I kept it. I was like, well, I'm saying it's my superhero origin story. I'm just very lazy with the hair dye now. That's what it is. But yeah, I was like, I'll keep the silver hair. But it was this, you kind of got your head down. I remember sitting around hospital waiting rooms with my laptop, because this is still during COVID, and I'm still having to run a business with a set of people who I care about. Also with our clients who are terrified small businesses at the other end. So 2 steps removed from me in a hospital room are a set of micro businesses who are trying to access furlough, trying to figure out how to pay their staff, what's going to happen if to the hospitality industry if everyone has to socially distance forever. So I'm also dealing with all that and literally fighting for my life, having to learn to walk again, accept a body that I didn't recognise anymore, covered in bruising and all sorts. And at the time, I think it didn't really register, because you'll just keep going. And actually, sometimes your brain does this incredible trick where when you need to just get on with something, it will let you, and you don't crumble. And I just kept going. That was it. Just one foot, quite literally some days, 1 foot in front of the other. That's it. That was all I could do.
In survival mode.
Yeah, you have 2 choices at any time. If something's in front of you, you've only ever got 2 choices, and it's do it or don't. Those are your only 2 options. No one's coming to save you. So do it or don't. And my option was do it.
What was the physical process for you to get better? Because you're looking a picture of health right now.
It was, the medication. So I suppose break it into a couple of categories. So the first was I was in excruciating pain, because quite literally, and I've been left with, in my foot, of all the arteries that exist in your foot, all of them but one are just, dead, blocked, because the arteries cause scarring, so they're useless. And so I've only got one that's working at about 25% capacity in my foot. And then at the top, the one that kind of feeds your butt cheek, that one's only at about 25%. So as your body is desperately it's bottlenecking, right? It's trying to push blood through something where blood doesn't want to go. That hurts. You've also got if anyone's ever done any kind of gym training, that feeling of lactic acid when you haven't got enough oxygen in your muscles. Blood carries the oxygen there. So that feeling of burn is there quite a lot, an ache. And I'm still left with a chronic pain which exists. And when you have chronic pain, again, your brain does this kind of quite incredible thing of kind of just turning it into that background noise of the washing machine going that you don't realise was going until it stopped. Like, it just kind of does that. So first of all, it was kind of dealing with that. Then it was dealing with the fact that when you're walking, you don't really quite realise how much you use the sensation underneath both of your feet. And so I don't have much sensation under my right foot. I can't feel very much. So it's, I think I've been left with nerve damage or something from it. So learning how to walk without really feeling where my foot was in space. And when you've been a dancer and then an athlete, and you're so used to understanding where your body is in the world, that was really unusual. And then just the other stuff of, dealing with medicine side effects and trying to feel normal again, just trying to feel a little bit like your old self. I had to learn to let go of that version of me that had been a powerlifter and had been a dancer and all that stuff, because that wasn't me anymore. And even if I had got back to full strength again, which wouldn't be possible now, actually, if you've been through anything like that, you come out of it a different person. A part of you, I didn't physically die, but some parts of you do. And you have to learn to grieve those parts of you and let them go. Grieve future versions of you where that wouldn't have happened. That's the harder process than the physical healing. Physically, you can end up looking all right, and it's the other stuff in there that takes the work and the very conscious effort. Your body will mainly heal without you trying. Your body wants to heal most of the time, and it will do a really good job of doing that for you. It's the other stuff that you've got to actively let go of. That's the really hard work.
You also say that if you spend your life being strong and self-sufficient, people don't always know how to respond when you finally break.
Yeah. And it's a really hard thing to say to people who love you, when you have to start learning to tell that truth. And when you say that to people who love you, that you weren't really there for me in the way that I needed. And because I'm always the strong one, I'm not actually very good at articulating when I need help. But it really is a double-edged sword then, because if you then say, help me, I need help, other people don't know what to do with you, because you're the person who gives the help usually. So it kind of just shatters people's worlds. It blows their mind. Suddenly, I remember it was actually my aunt said to me, she was talking to me about it afterwards, and she just said, darling, she said, the thing is, we just all thought you were bulletproof. It was really quite a shock to discover that you were a human, which was sort of said half tongue in cheek, but also sort of not, and I'd done all those things. Not only am I quite resilient and resourceful as a person generally, but I was also extremely physically strong.
Yeah.
So, all those things combined together can really blow people's minds. I'm on backward borrowed time. I should have died that day in Singleton Park. I should have just dropped dead, and I didn't. And so if there's anything that's going to tell you to go out and eat the world and just do the scary thing or do the brave thing, then that's it, right? I didn't die, so why wouldn't I absolutely live to the maximum that I can, do everything? And hopefully when I do die, I am covered in scars and wrinkles and bad tattoos, and I am just fat with life when I do eventually kind of crash into my grave at 125.
Which I can imagine. And talking about 100 miles an hour, when I first came across you, I thought, what a brilliant maverick. I seek out my own in terms of my tribe, and you're definitely one of them. I want to talk about the Lucy brain, because you've described yourself as having raging ADHD. Yeah. How did you first realise that was what was going on?
So my diagnosis with ADHD is really quite recent. I was only diagnosed about 9 months ago. But anybody who's ever met me no one's gone, oh, Lucy, yeah, she's really chill. Like, that is a chilled out person. I think I've always known that my brain's worked differently. And again, privileged thing to be able to say, because I know some people with ADHD really struggle with school. I found it boring because it was easy. I'm always searching for something to learn. I'm never bored. There is always something that I can send my brain off to go and, revise or think about or unpick or kind of figure out. So there were two things that made me go for an ADHD diagnosis. Well, I suppose three. One was that I drove a rickshaw across India for charity in March. So,
as you do?
Yeah, just casually, yeah. So decided to drive 1,200 kilometres for charity from Chennai to Goa as part of a rickshaw rally across International Women's Day. And the types of people who do that thing we're not normal. Like, and I asked so few questions about it. I don't know what I thought I was doing. I don't know. I thought it was some kind of like some nice white woman Instagram trip. I showed up and they're like, please don't die. Here's a toolkit. See you at the other side. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. This is happening. I was with this incredible group of women. I got on really well with them. And so many of those people said that they had a neurodiversity. I was like, okay, if you're my tribe and I feel like I vibe with you, maybe there's something. Then I was talking at an event and a woman came up to me afterwards and she was a psychologist. And we're chit-chatting away afterwards. And she just said to me, she's like, oh, so were you diagnosed quite young? I was like, with what? And look at the God, do I look ill? Like, what's wrong with me? And she said, with your ADHD. And I was like, huh? And she went, oh, no. She's like, oh, no, I've got news for you. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And didn't really think anything of it. And then basically what happened was I, with all the spare time I have, decided to do my MBA at Aston. And because I was interested in it, wrote my entire dissertation in 4 hours. References, no edits, no notes, off it went. I thought, yeah, that's probably not normal. So I went and I got diagnosed. And to cut a really long story short, this woman said to me, the doctor said to me, look, if you score over 50, the likelihood is that you have ADHD. I said, okay, cool. Like, what was my score? And she said 94. I said, out of what? She's like, yeah, 100. I'm like, oh, there's not really a grey area here, is there? She's like, no, and I think you'd really benefit from some medication. I was like, okay, thank you. Thanks, doc.
What did that medication do? Because I'm thinking of doing a test after this conversation.
If you and I get on, it's probably because you've got ADHD.
Yeah.
I was scared, and she said that everybody who has that diagnosis, is successful and has a brain that we all think is like our secret sauce, is like my magical power. I was like, but won't it take away like my special gift? And she was like, Lucy, it's not a special gift. You have succeeded in spite of the fact your brain has fought you every step of the way. She said, all this is going to do is stop you having to fight your own brain. And she said, look, and if you hate the medication, you don't have to take it anymore. That's it. It's not addictive. It's got a really short kind of half-life. It's out of your body in a day. So you don't have to take it anymore. I was like, okay, well, this seems like a sensible idea. So the first day I took it, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was like someone had switched the noise-cancelling headphones on finally. And I was walking around the park, kind of looking around going, oh, because I've been singing the same one line from Ludacris's Fantasy, that song from 1999 in my head every day on loop since 1999. The one where he goes like, eating fresh fruit. That's in my head. Also, do you remember the Super Ted adverts from the 80s where Super Ted tells Spotty not to cross behind the bus and he says, not behind the bus, Spotty? In my head, every day, every time I see a bus, not behind the bus, Spotty. That's not normal, apparently. Apparently normal people don't do that. That kind of, it just quietened that. And I was worried that I wouldn't be as productive, that I wouldn't be as creative, that I wouldn't enjoy things as much, actually. But actually what's happened is that I'm like Bradley Cooper in Limitless now, and it's just basically given me an entire extra few terabytes of hard drive to plug into my brain, and I think I'm more unbearable than ever.
I think I've read you've described it as glasses for your brain.
Glasses for your brain, yeah. Yeah, it's like putting glasses on for your brain. Why would you struggle and squint and you can put those things on and then it's easy to read and you can read more? That's what it's like.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's got everything to do with your success. And I think it's a superpower. And you've obviously done something different than other people would have thought when the accountant, was it Ian?
Ian, yeah.
Said no, you said yes.
Yeah.
That's a different brain.
Yeah, and it's the problem-solving bit and the seeing things in a different lens, I think, is the gift, is being able to look at a problem and not ever see something as to me, nothing ever feels like a hard no. Like, certainly in business, it always just feels like a not yet. And so whenever I can't do something, I'm like, well, I can't do it yet. So it just feels like I can't do this thing right now. Maybe it's because the thing I need, a bit like when Netflix started and like broadband like wasn't good enough to kind of stream on, it feels like, well, the thing just hasn't caught up with me yet, but it will, and I'll be here when it's ready. And that's always kind of how I approach stuff. If anything like nearly dying teaches you is life is so short, you should not delay gratification, because actually you don't know when you might never get that chance. So yeah, I am a real kind of like Lucy world, take the bull by the horns type of person. Say yes and figure it out later is very much my motto.
I thought I was the only one.
just figure it out. Can you do that? Yeah, sure. Can you ride a horse? Why not? Can't be that hard. Other people do it. I'm very much like, well, other people could do it, so why can't I?
Yeah, rickshaws come to mind.
All of it. Yeah, why not? Yeah. Who says I can't?
But for reinvention, you do need reimagination. I think
Yeah.
you've got to have my brain is more like a ferret's fighting. It's just like bouncing off the sides, having a scrap. Now, how does ADHD show up for you as a founder on the good days and on the bad days?
Yeah, and it's not all, we're talking about this as being like a superpower, but, with great power comes great responsibility. So on the good days, I am a productive, problem-solving, outputting, everything's just... You get those days when it's just like click, 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 click. Like everything is just slotting into place. Those really satisfying videos where like someone presses a brick and then the whole lot kind of go like Jenga down into like one straight thing of bricks. Oh, it's like that. It's like lovely. Those are the good days. The bad days are when you can't hold a thought, or you start to do something and then it's punched out the way by another thought. And then you're like, why am I in this room? Why am I holding this cake? What was I doing here? Those are the bad days. And there are other things that go along with ADHD that I think that I hadn't realised that I had, and I've learned to deal with, but actually now they've got a label, it's actually quite helpful. So things like the rejection sensitivity, somebody saying something to you and you take it really personally, even though it's not meant that way at all. Now externally, and I've developed actually pretty thick skin, and I'm quite happy to kind of have those rough conversations, and I tend not to take stuff personally, but I actually really recognise in myself there are things that can be said where I feel it's a very childlike, vulnerable feeling, and I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Like that's where it's hurting, and it can be really painful. That can be really hard if you don't kind of have a handle on it. And the other one for me is verbal processing. So if something's bothering me, not problems on, but something's bothering me, I think maybe a brave word would be upsetting me, I will say it over and over and over again in different ways to different people. And and I can imagine, I don't really realise I'm doing it. I could imagine to other people that's probably quite irritating. I've said the same thing 15 times now. There's something wrong. My brain's like looped. It's not kind of doing it. I am a verbal processor, and I'm a very fast processor. So if somebody doesn't process quickly and they're kind of pausing, I'm like, go faster. I'm like, come on, like go more quickly. Yeah, you're laughing because you do that too.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, no. And you know exactly what the person's going to say. I'm like, I already know what you're going to say. Could you just say it, please?
Can we just cut to the chase?
Which is a horrible, like a terrible thing to be as a human, because you're rushing people who don't process at that speed. So yeah, it's partly processing. The other thing I massively struggle with, and I used to never understand why it would, because I've over the years suffered with panic attacks, and I could never understand really. I started to understand what triggered them, and it's usually if I'm tired, so I've not slept well, if I'm kind of too warm, lots of like sensory overload, specifically smell is a real trigger for me. Like I've got a nose like a bloodhound. I've got a very, very strong sense of smell. So anything that I notice or bothers me or feels out of place, I really pick up on. So restaurants used to be a place where would be, in the cruelest way, because I love food, I could quite easily have a panic attack in a restaurant. Actually, that's a sensory overload thing. So I now notice if something is just a tiny, tiny bit too loud, like the TV or something is a bit loud, I actually like scrunch my face up, and it's like you can't think. It's like someone's pressed the magic button and it's switched off all the thoughts in your brain, because it's that teeny tiny like milli bit of a decibel too loud. Turn it down, you're like, oh, thank God. So those are the days when it's hard. And I'm actually, despite all of this, I'm quite an introverted person. Like it's being up and out, like drains me. So if I'm ever at a conference for a couple of days, and I know that's part of my job is being there and meeting people and doing all that stuff, actually I need to go and sit probably in a hotel on my own for a couple of days just to decompress, where I don't have anybody asking me questions or asking anything of me. But I didn't know that until recently. Prior to that, I'd find that very, very difficult.
Wow. Is there a propensity for catastrophizing at all?
Oh my God, yes.
No, don't say that.
Yeah.
Say no.
Yeah,
say no.
no,
I
yeah.
do that.
It's that, yeah, catastrophizing. So I will take, and it's because you process fast and also problem solve. So what you'll do is you'll take something And my therapist I had described it to me in two ways, which was really helpful. So the first one was, it's like you've got in your car in Swansea and you slam the door, and before you know it, you have driven at 500 miles an hour to London, and you've not stopped for anything. You've not looked at any of the cities you've passed by or any of the cars you've overtaken. You've just gone straight there. That's where your brain's gone vroom, to the worst case scenario. And I don't know whether that's like a problem solving thing. It's definitely an anxiety thing. So I was like, okay, well, that's quite useful. I really recognise that about myself. But the other thing that they said to me that was really useful when I do kind of get that catastrophizing thing and you think, oh, this terrible thing's going to happen, you'll lose your sleep over it, is the most useful thing that has ever been said to me is that, well, so far in your life, you have literally survived everything. Why would you not think you'll survive this next thing? I was like, well, that's scarily accurate. Literally still alive. It just switches that perspective. But yeah, the catastrophizing is a huge thing.
So have you put in place people, systems, habits that help you work with your brain instead of fighting it?
So my answer would probably be different, I think, if I worked in a normal job. And I think partly this is why it's kind of was undetected for me for such a long time, and probably why you have such a high incidence rate of it in entrepreneurs, in that I didn't fit into a standard world. So when I was doing my apprenticeship, I moved from Jury's Hotel Group to Cardiff Council because I saw that they were going to be doing a big technology implementation. And again, I just got any old job I could there, like the lowest level job in schools accountancy, on the absolute assumption that I would 100% definitely get a job seconded into this project, which is exactly what I did. So I was like, I know, I've got to at least be in the room. I'm definitely not getting the job if I'm not there. So I need to at least be there. So I'd heard about this project was going ahead. I was like, I need to get in there. Got a secondment on this project. Did really well because it's tech and it's change and it's constant pace moving. And after, I think, about 18 months, and I'd been promoted about 5 times and was earning quite a lot of money for someone in their early 20s, my secondment came to an end, and Cardiff Council said to me, as it goes, well, now you have to go back to your old job. I was like, no, thanks. I really don't want to do that. And that's when I started Mazuma. Because at such a young age, I basically noped myself out of a real structure, and I was able to just build something that worked for me and my brain. And similarly, then able to hire people, because it's what they say when you run a business is play to your strengths. And I am kind of a believer. People say like, oh, you should work on your weaknesses. I'm calling BS on that. They can stay weak. I can hire other people for doing the stuff I'm rubbish at. I can only do what I can do. And I want to be the best version of that unique ability that I can be. I don't need to work on my weaknesses. My weaknesses are someone else's strengths. Let's get them really good at that. So I was able to do that. I'm going back to that because I always think it's quite a funny analogy. I love sports analogies. Like if you've got an incredible striker on your football team, you don't go, oh, we really need to work on your goalkeeping. Like it's not a thing. Like they don't do it. Play to your strengths and just leave the weaknesses for somebody else because they're their strengths. So yeah, I've been able to kind of note myself out of environments where I think my ADHD would have really shown up and I'd have really struggled. So I think that's partly why it was kind of not undetectable, because apparently everyone else could see it, but why for me it didn't really present an issue.
Well, seeing as we're in a clinic and we're in a consultation process, I think I've probably done the same because I've surrounded myself with brilliant people who have taken my strengths and my vision and my ideas and my bonkersness and made up for the things I'm not very good at.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't be a surprise to them at all. I mean, I wasn't expecting it from this conversation, and you put me off my guard, so I'm going to ask another question.
Let's do it.
I want to come to a completely different part of your life,
Okay.
and it's a shoot that you did.
Yes.
What made you decide, after everything, to stand almost naked in front of a camera?
I don't know. Like most things that I do in my life, it's all just vibes, and I figure out why I've decided to do it later. So again, when I was away in India driving a rickshaw, totally normal sentence, quite a lot of women there had done one of these shoots. There are women there who are running businesses that, I think lots of people would think of taboo, people who run kind of sex party companies and things like that. And this was conversation that was so normalised and so natural and so, you could be talking about anything. That it just seemed very normal. And when I came back, the idea kind of popped into my head about it. And I was starting to feel I made a few times. I'm a big believer in going to therapy. It's the best money I spend every week. So I've been kind of starting to like figure out some stuff through therapy, and was kind of becoming more accepting of my body as it shows up in the world now, and starting to be grateful for it instead of being angry at it and blaming it, and feeling the feeling I felt most of all for years. The blood clots happened in 2001. It was only really once the photographer showed me a picture of myself that I think I forgave my body for its betrayal. I felt like it had betrayed me.
Wow.
And I didn't realize how deeply I had carried that belief. And with that belief came the idea that the best part of me was just my brain, and that my body was just something that got to carry my brain around. And I joke like, well, just take my brain out and put it in a robot and that would be great. Like, let's just do that, because I don't need this stuff. This is unreliable and messy and too human. Like, ugh, let's get rid of that. Let's just use my brain. And actually, I'd really lost that kind of brain-body connection. So something somewhere made me click on the website of the photographer, made me book the shoot and spend an inordinate amount of money on very little material and do a boudoir shoot. I was apprehensive doing it. I think it's quite something to say, I'm going to not only stand pretty much naked in front of some strangers, but also I like myself enough to want you to capture this somehow, and then I'm going to look at it. People kept asking me, like, what are you going to do with these photos? Like, I don't know, look at them, I guess. Like, what else do you do with photos? I probably turn them into Christmas cards, knowing me, but there we are. So I wasn't really sure what to expect, but the whole experience itself was incredibly empowering, genuinely empowering. And I think there's something about somebody else directing you and being, I've done photo shoots and headshots and stuff for business and stuff before, and press and all the rest of it, and being on telly and things, but there's a vulnerability to nudity, and there's a vulnerability to doing that in front of people you don't know, and also to kind of have them pose you. And the photographer Tiggs has a magical gift, because she showed me what she saw. She captured what she saw, and like in that moment, something in my brain just cracked, and I was like, that's me. Like, that is what I look like. It was really healing in a way that wasn't what I expected from it. I just kind of thought it'd become some like fun, saucy photos, like a bit of a laugh. I'm very much like do it for the plot. So, something that I could tell stories about later. But actually, I suddenly saw myself not as a meat sock that carried my brain about, was that actually I'm a whole being, and I have worth. Just for being there and existing, not because I'm useful. And that was a huge thing for me to realise.
Wow. I mean, it was like a culmination of the journey, wasn't it? You had to go there, and the extremity of it. I mean, the fact you're embracing it now, and you're so strong after it, which speaks volumes.
I think things come to you at the right time, or that you see things come to you at the right time.
If you're open to them.
If you're open to it, yeah. Is letting the world in, and letting the world kind of show you your next best move. And for whatever reason, something told me that was something I should do, and I did. And I actually did it. It was quite funny. I did it a day before I had to fly to Jakarta with my AAT president hat on for a international financial accounting conference.
Was that on the cover?
Well, no, but I did actually have to travel with a case full of quite saucy underwear. And I did think, this is going to be really embarrassing if my case gets opened and I'm with my colleagues from an accounting body and I've got a load of like saucy, like this is going to be a great story. But that didn't happen. Again, in classic Lucy style, well, I'll go from there to there and there. I got back, and it was actually in the car on the way back. We're going through the photos, and she just sent me over a couple to look at. And I was just blown away. I was like, wow. I was like, are these, have you done something to these? Like, if you edited these? She's like, no, not edited. All you. This is what you look like. I was like, wow. Seeing yourself through somebody else's eyes is incredibly powerful and really disarming, really, really disarming. Because you sometimes wonder, I think all of us can spend so much time in our own heads, or maybe spend time worrying about how we're perceived by others. And maybe we make micro adjustments and we change how we talk or how we look. Or I just think there's something about those You know when you watch somebody and there's just something about the way they move or something about the way they approach a problem or the way they use their body in the world that you find fascinating or charming or sexy or like adorable or something. But we never think about anybody else thinking about that, about us. And so to suddenly have a moment where you've got evidence of how someone else sees you, I just think is beautiful.
Let's talk about how you build and run things now. Looking back, what are the key decisions that made Mazuma work as a Maverick business?
I think you don't know what they are in the moment. And again, I am someone who trusts my gut. I trust my gut, but I am also a huge data person. And it's usually those two things line up. So I'm very aware that I can't scale a business and go to investors or stakeholders and go, this is going to work because my gut says it's a great idea. Like that works when you're young and you're very new and you're just kind of riding that wave. As you get more sophisticated as a business, you've got to be able to back yourself up. So learning to put those structures in that prove what you're doing and then actually learning how useful that is. So that data, again, is like a map. It will tell you the right direction to go in most of the time. So I think that is something I learned quite early on, like let's measure everything. You know, what gets measured gets managed. Let's measure stuff. Let's use that to get faster, more efficient. I'm a little bit obsessed with manufacturing. Like I find big machinery and like machines that make loads of stuff really quickly fascinating. Insight into my mind, I will watch hours of video footage of machines making things because I think it's absolutely fascinating, like how all the different components work and how specific some machines are. Like the machines that like make like one side of a piece of Velcro because the other one's in Germany because it makes more sense to do that than put them in the same machine. Fascinating. Love that stuff. So I will watch hours and hours and hours of that stuff because I think it's brilliant. But it makes my brain go, okay, well, if my end product is a set of accounts and my raw product is a bunch of receipts, how do I get from there to there in as few steps as possible with as little margin for error and in the most profitable way? So where are my margins? And that's my brain going, how do I get from A to Z without having to go through all the alphabet? How can I skip? So that ability, I think, if you're trying to scale something, is absolutely crucial. And then the other thing, the big decisions, is it not being about me. So is that it shouldn't be like the Lucy Cohen method. It's Mazuma and the Mazuma brand, because I've got this kind of thing which I've kind of named petal theory. I think of business, I'm quite a visual thinker. I think of business as looking like a flower, or if you're old enough, a spirograph. Remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the centre of it is you. So if you're starting a business, you're a founder, the centre of that is you. And then the first maybe 5 or 6 people, petals that you hire, the base of that petal attaches to you. So those first 5 or 6 people, you will be a properly terrible place to work. You're having to assemble your desk when you get in. Nothing works. Everything is rubbish. The roof is leaking. No one's got proper laptops. Like, it's terrible. But they're attached to you and they bought into you and your vision, and they're just happy to be there and they want to be part of the journey. That's your A team. You're in the trenches. When they then hire people, so the next layer out of the spirograph or petals, they're not directly attached to the centre of that flower anymore. They're attached to other people, which is fine because those people are still passionate. But the more of those layers you have, the less connected it is to that centre bit. And so it's learning to understand, does that matter? Or do you have enough in place to keep what's important, to keep the thing going? And that makes it sound like I got it figured out on day one. Of course I didn't. But over the years, you figure out, okay, well, how much do I need to take at each level in order to keep the thing going in the way that I want it to work? So those are the things that help scale a business, I think. And then it's just seeing money, like not being scared of money. So seeing money as just another resource, like time or light or water. It's another resource to use to help grow your business, and to surround myself with people who make me feel really stupid. Like just putting myself in rooms where I sit there going, oh God, I'm thick. I don't know what they're talking about. And just sitting there going, oh, yeah, great. And then going and frantically Googling whatever it is that's just been discussed. Because, just putting myself in really uncomfortable positions and sitting there and going, I know nothing. And that's fine. I'm going to sit here and feel stupid for a bit until I know it. Doing that constantly is the trick.
Interesting you should say that about money as, just a byproduct, really. Because I've never made anything for money. I've always made, tried to make a great program, an event or a initiative because just making greatness follows everything else.
Yeah.
And as an accountant originally, I would have thought you would have said something different.
It's a probably horrible thing to say if any of my investors are watching. I do really want to make a lot of money, I promise. Money is the outcome of doing something well that people like and buy into. And that money then becomes a resource you can use for something else. That's employing people, it's giving back, it's investing, it's whatever else it is. Money in and of itself isn't the product, unless you work in the stock market, in which case it's all made up. Sorry, stock market, but it's true. Crypto, definitely made up. So yeah, it's all made up anyway. So like it's all numbers somewhere. Have any of us actually ever seen any of our money lately? No, it just lives in a app somewhere. Like it's all nonsense. But it's a game. It's a game, and it's about how do I use this resource, whatever that resource is. In this instance, money. How do I use this resource to make more of this resource so I can do other things and I can diversify or go up or down or sideways or whatever else. I am also somebody who I can't do something if the only thing I would get out of it is money. It's just not interesting.
No.
It's not interesting to me at all. I need to have a purpose. I've got to be excited about it. I've got to feel like it's doing something good. And I also think that we live in this world where we've got this huge inequality of wealth constantly, and it's getting worse. And the narrative on it is becoming more and more polarizing, that if you're only focusing on money, you become a very selfish, bitter person. My favourite Christmas movie is The Muppet Christmas Carol. And I know, I know that wasn't the original. I'm going to also say Michael Caine's best role. Best thing he's ever done.
Possibly.
Muppet Christmas Carol as Ebenezer Scrooge. Yeah, best role. You should have got an Oscar for that. But anyway, there's a reason why that resonates still every year. How is it we only think about that stuff at like those moments? I've got a proper ADHD tangent now. I've forgotten what the question was, but it really irritates me when I see people post on social media and they talk about there's been this tax rise or this tax change or whatever else. And it's partly the 24-hour news cycle we have, because everything has to be sensational. Everything's got to be a scandal. Everything's got to be, left or right or yes or no. There can't be anyone in the middle that just goes, well, you win some, you lose some. Never mind. Last year was better for me. This year, not so much. Oh, well, it'll all even itself out in the end. I hate it that the reaction to any of that is people who think they might have been slightly slighted by whatever, just standing there and going, well, I'm going to go and move out of the UK then. I don't like that you're going to make me pay for the thing I've used for 50 years. Going, well, I'm going to leave, because all that signals to me is you don't want to pay for the future of anyone. How unbelievably selfish do you have to be and entitled to go, well, I've taken everything I want from this. I'm pulling the ladder up and I'm buggering off. What a sad place to be in if that is the only thing you can do to feel like you're exerting autonomy. Go and do something purposeful. Go and help someone. Go and give your money to a charity or do something good with it. Like, just by all means, criticize the government for how they spend that money. That's absolutely legit. Like, you should absolutely do that. But don't say you're not going to contribute. Like, what kind of bell end have you got to be to do that? Like, I just don't get it at all.
Love it. You've gone beyond Mazuma. You've gone into pain relief campaigns for IUD procedures, mental health in accounting. Yeah. Well, your book, Forget the First Million, which we haven't spoken about, which I'd love to. What connects all those projects for you?
I can't keep my mouth shut. Really, and I should probably learn to. If there's something that I feel is unjust or unfair, and I can at least try to do something about, I'll do it. And it's quite often to my own detriment, because it takes a lot of energy. But there's this little thing in me, and I am privileged. I have a platform and people do listen to me to a degree. And I just think, well, I should use that for good, not to sell snake oil. I should try and change something for the better. So the IUD thing, for example, so after the blood clots, and they all, I think, again, life leads you down a road. After blood clots, obviously I couldn't use any hormonal birth control because they didn't know what caused the clots. And so they're like, well, you can't do that. So I had to have an IUD fitted. And in saying that word, I'm sure there are many women watching this who've all winced at that phrase. And it was horrific. It was an absolutely terrible experience. Though it was unbelievably painful. And I just thought, this can't be right. Like, I thought, and I was made to believe there was something wrong with me, that I was the only one that this happened to, and it must be my fault. I remember at the time, I think I tweeted it when Twitter was still a thing and not the cesspool it is now. I'm going to get sued by somebody after this, aren't I? Someone's going to take legal action against me after this podcast. So I remember tweeting about it and just saying, oh, I had this horrible experience. And then loads of people started like retweeting it and messaging it again. I did as well. I thought it was just me. I was like, oh no, this is something. And then I was like, well, let's get some proof and some evidence and gather some data. So I put together a really quick, knocked up a quick survey and just sent it out into the world. And it went viral. It got picked up by Caroline Correia Perez, who wrote Invisible Women. That's an incredible book. It got picked up by Caitlin Moran. It got picked up by Naga Manchetti, who had all had similar experiences. And basically, I ended up giving evidence to the Senedd and to Westminster about this thing and making enough noise that I actually got the medical guidelines changed because of it. And actually, to this day, that's the only piece, and I'm calling it research in inverted commas because it was me angry after a glass of red wine with a survey and an idea. Has survey will social media, quite dangerous. Off I went. And that's quoted in medical papers. It was written about in the British Medical Journal. It's in at least 4 different books that people have said, oh, they've talked about your campaign here and have like sent me a picture of it and then sent me a book. And I just think a couple of things, and things that for me feel like a recurring theme in my life, in that so many other people had experienced this and were made to feel like it was only them and believed it. So how many times do we get told that we are the limitation and we believe it? And there's just something in me that is just like, no, I don't think that sounds right. I think that's wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong, but I'm going to prove it first. Like, I'm happy to prove myself wrong. That's the whole point of data. Data doesn't lie, it tells you the truth. It's just raw. Data with no context tells you the truth. It's the context that's really important. So, yeah, that got that changed. And I think it showed me that actually, yes, you can look to the powers that be and whoever's in charge and ask for change and vote and all the rest of it. But you really want to change something, what is so brilliant about this country is you can go and do it. You've got the power to go and do that. You can mobilise and go and get something changed in a sensible, legitimate, reasoned way, and in a way that's going to help other people, which is what's really important to me. So now millions of women every year have pain relief for a procedure because I was angry enough to start tweeting about it.
So on that point, time for our Maverick Maxims, which is quick fire, first thing that comes to your head.
Ooh.
So let's...
Oh, anything could happen here. Am I allowed to swear?
I think most of it has. A belief about business you've completely changed your mind on.
That you need people in the early days that aren't your skill set. Really early on, I got convinced to hire a sales manager because I got convinced by somebody else that I wasn't good at sales, despite the fact I sold, and I didn't, and it was a waste of money and it was a nightmare. So that.
One habit or ritual that keeps you grounded?
Oh, this is a really bad one. I scroll TikTok at night before I go to bed. You're not meant to, are you, with blue lights? But I feel like I've earned it. I've been really clever all day. Like, let me go and watch rug cleaning and soap shaving on TikTok. It's my joy.
Or machines?
Oh, like that. Like, go and watch that all evening. Like, just feed it into my brain. Yeah, like I love that.
Maybe it's the antidote to the day.
I think it is. I spent all day making decisions. I just want to watch someone shave soap. That's it.
A song or an artist that always lifts you?
Oh, that's a really good one. So my favourite ever album is The Great Escape by Blur. And I forget how much I love that album. And whenever I play it, I am transported back to 90s Britpop and the golden era of boys' haircuts and brown corduroy trousers, not worn by old people. And yeah, just makes me think of a golden era and Vanilla Impulse and all that good stuff.
Music does that.
Oh, that if I hear Charmless Man from that album, just I'm in my mid-teens again and all the angst and yeah, love it.
A small thing every founder should do for their mental health?
Pause. Just pause. We never look back down the mountain at how far we've come. We're always looking at the next peak. Just every now and again, just pause and look at where you came, because it's so much further than you thought you'd be.
What's a painful moment or a mistake that taught you a lesson you still lean on?
I'm going to go reference the sales piece. We got convinced by, again, Dragon's Den era, convinced to bring this person on, kind of got talked into hiring an office that was way bigger and more expensive than we needed. And it felt like someone had seen the business for the first time. It felt like they got me, because everyone else was really struggling with the business. It was really, really early on. We took this huge office space. We committed to all these costs. We didn't have enough income to literally pay the rent, let alone all the salaries I just hired. And on the day that we moved in, this person who was going to come in with all the sales stuff, all the rest of it, he just ghosted us, disappeared. Yeah. And I remember sat on the floor of my boardroom. I didn't need a boardroom. I didn't have a board or any meetings or any clients, like the absolute ego of it. I remember sat there and I was like, wow, this is going to be embarrassing, isn't it? Like, after, like, there's a couple of years in, like, had really good press. I'm like, this is going to be really embarrassing. And I sat there going, two choices. You do it or you don't. And I chose do it. And it was proper eating humble pie, shoes back on, back to networking, back to just like traipsing it. And yeah, that was a huge mistake. Even though I'd done everything I should have done right, it can still be a mistake. The outcome can be the mistake, even if the intent wasn't. But God, I learned so much about resilience and trust and guts and all that stuff. I am so thankful for that lesson so early on in the business.
Can you think of a time you were told to play it safe and you're glad you didn't?
Literally always. Like, people are always telling me not to do something or just to scale it back. It's just every day. And I'm like, no, we're doing this. Yeah, all the time, constantly.
Great.
Every day.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
We have this feature called the Maverick moment, the point where you look around and think, I don't think anyone else could have done this quite like I've just done. What's that moment for you?
So this happened about 18 months ago, actually. And as a company, we'd missed a huge kind of target about adoption of the new technology we built. And I knew that this technology in its current kind of code would get us to where we need to be for the next phase. But at some point, we're going to have to rebuild it and rewrite it in a different language, which anyone who's ever built tech, like, that's millions and that's painful. So I was really going, well, okay, maybe to keep people happy, because this was the business plan that I got the investment from, we can at least get the efficiency out of it to this point, and then we're going to take stock and, pivot a little bit over here. We missed the target to get users adopted into this system, and so we weren't having any efficiency gains from it. We're having to hire more people to cover the work this thing should have been doing, and we still had to rebuild the system. And a sensible person might have gone, well, it's only another 3 months. It's one more quarter. Let's go again and try again. But there was something in me that just went, right, I'm jumping now. I'm going, we're not going to get any efficiency out of this system. I'm calling it. I'm killing it, because I do feel like just because you spent a long time making a mistake, you shouldn't keep making it. And we knew it wasn't going to be right. And we gave ourselves that quarter to do it. And it hadn't been done. I was like, yeah, we're pulling it now. And I made the incredibly painful decision. I had to stand in a boardroom with people and go, hi, all that money? Yeah, I kind of need some more of it, because actually this is a much better idea. I promise you it's going to be so much better. And that then led me down to my data-y, nerdy route of realizing I had like nearly 20 years worth of data about small business behavior that I could then use to make a really well-informed new structure to the technology that we've built, which has very much informed what we've done in the build and has been more transformational and will continue to be so than had we done my original plan. But I had to, in that moment, go, big girl pants on now. We're just not doing this. It's not right. We're not half-arsing it. Whole arses only. We're not doing it. We go again, fresh, clean. And a board who were patient, but I think thought I was actually insane. Yeah.
We always finish with this line: a maverick is someone who ...
A maverick is somebody who never accepts no as a final answer.
And finally, when people look back at Mazuma, your campaigns, your writing, this whole BCAC story, what do you hope your life will have stood for?
Nobody has their net worth on their gravestone. Well, no one useful, no one good anyway, I think, probably. So knowing that ultimately, in the grand scheme of the universe, all of us are fundamentally pointless, really. We're specks in the entire universe. That's really empowering. And so if all it can stand for is that you leave things better than you found them, I think that's it, really. I want to go to my grave, like I said, deep in my overdraft, in layers of debt, fat, covered in tattoos and scars, wrinkled, exhausted, and owing a lot of money to institutions that don't care about me. That's how I want to go. But if it stood for anything, it's that I've left things just a little bit better than I found them. And I think that's the best you can do a lot of the time. That's it.
Lucy, thank you so much. Honestly, I was delighted when you said yes, because you were saying no to people after New Year.
I started saying no to people now, so, got in there quick.
From a rock chick to being, 20-something and then building an accountancy firm that is really of value and fighting your way back from 17 blood clots. I mean, I can't believe it, but you're here. I'm so glad you made it. You're still building, writing and campaigning. Your journey isn't over yet. I've got to thank you from the bottom of my heart and for the diagnosis as well. So thank you.
Yeah, good luck with that future medication of yours. Yeah, you're gonna have a blast with it. But no, honestly, thank you so much. It's been so much fun. I've had so much fun here.
Oh, good. And to everyone listening, remember, the world doesn't change by playing it safe. Stay sharp, stay bold, and keep that Maverick mindset alive. We'll see you next time on Inside the Maverick Mind.